Hi there, I'm Frank Renshaw. Welcome to Frank's Plastic Modeling page. This is my continued build of Eduard's 1/48 scale P-51D in 48 scale. My last video I had stressed a little bit about how I was going to deal with this step in between the front of the spinner and the rear spinner, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do about that. Anyway, I've solved that problem, and I'd like to share with you how I did that. As you can see, it now fits. So what I did is I pulled this apart and I pulled the actual prop off. I aligned the this particular side of the spinner because I did not want to have to rescribe that access door. Glued it with white glue and then went in and used plastic putty to fill in the steps. And then I sanded it smooth. And then once everything was smooth, I popped it back apart, and now I have a pretty good spinner. I still have to add rivet detail back to it, but that will be a piece of cake because it's not actually attached. It's this, and you can see where the plastic putty was used to fill in the steps. It's a pretty good size ridge right there, actually. So that's a pretty poor fit on Eduard's part. Anyway, that's one solution to this problem. I'm sure there are others, but that's how I did it, and I'm pretty happy with my result. So the liquid plastic I use, I make. This is Tamiya extra thin cement, the green cap, super quick drying. This is fantastic glue. I used to try to use plastic putty a long time ago, but I always had trouble because the glue we had just sucked, and it literally would take forever to dry, and it was really hard to sand, and it just really didn't work well. This glue is a game changer for plastic putty. I can put on very thin layers of this putty, and it will dry relatively quickly. So I can be sanding very quickly with this particular mixture. I use Tamiya plastic because Tamiya plastic has a hardness that is good for scribing. It's not very soft like the Airfix plastic, and it's not overly hard or brittle, kind of like Eduard plastic can be. I'm not exactly sure that's a huge deal, and I might actually experiment with that at some point, but right now my favorite mixture is to use this liquid cement, this Tamiya extra thin, with Tamiya plastic. And if you let that sit a good 24 hours, you will have no trouble scribing like you would bare plastic. It's an incredible trick, and I use it all the time, and I love it, and can't recommend it highly enough. That takes us back to the build, and one of the importances of why I used liquid plastic on this particular build, and why I would highly recommend using it. As you can see, I have recreated the fastener detail along the top of the engine cowling, and that was done with a number 0 beating tool, a jeweler's beating tool. Pretty easy to use, but it requires you to put a lot of force where each one of these little depressions are, and that force is more than enough to pop that joint. The best way I feel to reinforce that joint is to just have it backed with liquid plastic, or this plastic putty that I just showed you, and that's exactly what I did. I just built that up, and I had no trouble rescribing and repressing these fasteners, simply because that the joint behind it is heavily reinforced with plastic putty. All right. But all the rivet details now been recreated. So one of the biggest omissions of this kit has been fixed. And that really was not that hard to do if you have the right tools. I guess you could use a drill bit and just drill out openings and it would probably work. But I feel like that was a pretty major omission on Eduard's part. As we talked about in my last video, I mentioned I was going to glue the lower wing on and then glue the top wings on, and that's exactly what I did. I glued the lower wing on and let that dry good, and then I fitted this top wing as best I could and minimized, all the various areas that were going to be problematic, so that what I wound up with is a small gap running along where this wing fairing meets. And that's exactly where I wanted my problem, because this is an easy way to fix it. So this fairing right here on a real aircraft, the wing actually continues through the plane and is one piece. This fairing just basically covers the joint where the wing meets the fuselage, and it's just a little aerodynamic fairing. It has a little step between it and the wing, and that's completely realistic. So if you were to fill this seam, if you were to fill this with putty and sand it, you could be creating something that looks kind of wrong. It would be really easy to sand that smooth, and it's really difficult to sand up against something that fine. So the best way to deal with this particular malaise is to just put epoxy putty in it and wipe it down with water. And when we get to final painting, you won't be able to tell that's even there. That's why I did it. I guess any type of water-based or putty you can just wipe would work, but epoxy putty, this is probably the best use of epoxy putty that I can think of, and this is exactly where I tend to use epoxy putty, is when I don't have a load-bearing joint, and it's just an easy to put in the gap, wipe it smooth. Anyway, that's all that is. These little buggers right here, though, were a bit of a problem for me, and this is why I've been taking so long to get back to you on this video. This insert for the guns does not fit well. It fits so that the part actually had a small step so that it was lower than the wing, and I had to fill that in, and I of course used my plastic putty to do that and sanded it smooth and have rescribed it. But I got in a hurry. I rescribed too soon, had to do it over. Anyway, it works good and it looks good now, and that liquid plastic putty does work, but you want to make sure you give yourself a good 24 hours for it to cure, dry, whatever it does, because if you try to scribe before then, it can really make a mess. It just is, the plastic is soft and it doesn't scribe right. So, you just let it sit and everything works good. If you get in a hurry, it's not going to work good. I got in a hurry. In retrospect, what I would recommend is I would recommend that you remove the mounting tabs for this part and actually spread this part so that the step is such that the step exists where this stands above the wing, and then sand this down to match the wing. And when I build my next one, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to mess around with this step here. I hate these little steps like this. That's so annoying, and it's so close to these gun details. It's so easy to just nick that with sandpaper and ruin it. So I'm going to be spreading this out and then sanding it back so that it's flush with the wing. That's what I would recommend anybody do if you can't get it perfect right out of the box. And I've actually seen a few of these built, and they didn't bother to do anything. There's a giant step right there. So that annoys me. I don't want a step right there. I talked a little bit about this in my last video, and that's the front cowling where the canopy meets. And as you can see, the fit's much improved. It's actually perfect if I press it. And I'll do that when I glue it. But when you build yours, you're going to want to very much pay some attention to this piece right here. Now, if you remove this part and stick the canopy on, it fits. If this part's in place, though, it doesn't fit. It pushes it out and creates a very large step between the canopy and the fuselage. You need to make sure that you sand this part down and fit until the canopy can fit without much trouble, or you're going to really not like the look of your P-51. Neither will the judges. So that is a big deal. I guess the moral to the story is this Eduard kit is very nicely detailed, but it does have some gotchas. Okay, the next one I ran into was when I glued this fillet in, and this really wasn't a terrible surprise because it's not unusual when doing things like these fillets that you have these kind of issues. But the fillet fits really good on one side, but there was a big step on the other, and that's what that is. And I filled that with plastic putty, sanded it, re-riveted it. I still have to add some fasteners along the side here, but this is pretty much ready to go. All riveting has been accomplished. on the bottom. One of the things that I really, really like about this Eduard kit, they provide a blank for the guns that actually shows the bottom ejection mechanism for the guns. It's pretty cool. That was kind of a neat surprise. Anyway, that's in this kit, and I've never seen that before. That is very clever, Eduard. I love that. Now, when I glued the front wing on, I had a massive step here, and there was no way around it. And you can see this has been filled with liquid plastic putty and rescribed. Not a big deal, but be aware, there is a very large step right here where the wing meets the front fuselage. The inserts for these air intakes, these filter intakes, fit perfectly. I mean, it was just an amazing piece. So, but anyway, that's where we're sitting. And so now what happens is, now that I've got the detail on, now that I've got everything more or less back to normal, what I have to do is I have to go in and now prep the plastic for the natural metal finish. I will then paint the wings just silver. I will not, I'm going to leave these panel lines in, by the way. And the reason is when I look at pictures of operational P-51s, there's panel lines on them. And I know they were filled, but I think you'll find that an airplane is not exactly a solid object. It actually flexes and moves as it moves through the air, and especially a fighter aircraft. So that my theory is that putty probably just cracks. It probably cracks where the panels are. And then and then a little bit of dirt and grime will get in between where those cracks are, and you'll actually be able to see them. And you can. I mean, you can see them in pictures. It's not hard to find pictures of P-51s with some panel lines, even though I know those seams are filled. But what you don't see is rivets. I don't believe that there's a need to put rivets on there. But anyway, on mine, I will be leaving these panel lines, and that's why. I will then move forward, and I will then paint the natural metal parts, and then I will paint my markings on, and then we'll move on from there. This will be a very time-consuming part of this build. Prepping this plastic for natural metal finish is something I really firmly believe is just absolutely critical to have a good finish. And if you've watched me build models before, you know that I actually do natural metal pretty well. The key to natural metal, in my opinion, is preparation of the plastic. If you prep the plastic, it doesn't really matter what products you use. It will look way better if the plastic is all ready for it. If it's all perfect, shiny plastic, I mean, it's amazing the difference that prepping the plastic will make with natural metal. Because you can put the paint on super thin. I mean, you don't have to go back and continually fix these stupid things that you missed. So I will be spending a lot of time now prepping this plane for its finish. And that's really the annoying part of painting a natural metal aircraft is the prep. One last thing before I go. This Frankenstein landing gear here looks pretty ugly. And that's because it broke off like twice. And I finally just pinned it with graphite rod. If you build this kit, be aware these landing gear are extremely flimsy. Extremely. Toby's broke. I don't know. I haven't heard many other people talk about this yet, but these landing gear they will snap if you look at them wrong. So be aware of that. If Eduard produces a set of metal gear for this, you might consider just getting it, because that might not be a bad investment. Anyway, that's my update for the P-51 for right now. I'll keep you guys posted, and the next time we talk, I'll probably have some paint on it. Thanks. Bye.